Let's go with number one here. We actually got several number twos and so on, but as we go through on number one, what we have here is given the functions, evaluate each of the following. Oh, making sure my magic wand works. Gotta pause a second here. I hope I'm not boring you too much. Smack the wand around a little. Get my little green light to go on here. Still waiting for my green light. There it is. There we go. Good. Now we should be able to get up and going. Excellent. Very good. Okay, so f of negative 4. It says here that f of x is 3x minus 4. So you take the input, multiply it by 3, and subtract 4. So if I do 3 times negative 4 and subtract 4, 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Subtract 4 is negative 16. I'm going fairly fast here, but you should have a comfortable idea about your integers and your signed numbers. If you don't, then you want to come into extra help and address that. G of x is 2/3 x plus 1. I know we say that, but the best way to pronounce that is the output is the input times 2/3 plus 1. So I'm going to do 2/3 of 9 plus 1. You can use your calculator for this. Remember to put parentheses around the 2/3, or just do 3 goes into 9 3 times. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Now, h of negative 2. This is one that does cause kids some problems still. Look what this says over here. It says the output is the input squared plus 4 times the input minus 5. So if the input is negative 2, I got to square negative 2. That means I'm going to square the whole thing. So I put it in parentheses. Plus 4 times negative 2. Look, I put that one in parentheses. Minus 5. So this is 4, negative 8, negative 5. That's negative 13 and 4, which is negative 9. J of 1. Again, I'm going to square the input, then negate it. See the difference? Square the input, then negate it. Over here, I just squared the input. So I'm going to square the input, negate it. If I square 1 and negate it, I get negative 1. Then I add 2 times 1, which is just 2. So then negative 1 plus 2 is 1. And last but not least, k of 1. The input is 1. I got to square the input, multiply by 3, subtract 4. So if I do 1 squared, I get 1. Then I do 3 times 1, I get 3. And then I subtract 4, and I get negative 1. Okay, so those are the first few examples. Next up, which bracket notation is equivalent to 4 is less than or equal to x less than or equal to 7? And the big thing here is I'm not allowed to be equal on either case, so they have to be parentheses on both sides. That's letter D. We are doing extremely well at that particular question. Number 3, we're also doing well with. We've got this down pat. Boy, I can't think of a single kid who got this wrong on the test. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe somebody did, but I think we all got it right. Write a quadratic function. Now, because it's a quadratic function, I have to start with h of t equals. Sometimes kids forget that. And then there are 3 factors that we need to consider here. The first factor we need to consider is whether we are the effect of gravity. And we also have to see, are we in metric system or are we in English units? If we're in English units, the effect of gravity is negative 16, and that goes with the t squared. Next up, plus the upward velocity. It says the upward velocity is 57 feet per second, and that goes with t. And then the last part is the height from which you're shot or do whatever at, and that's 25 feet, so that's plus 25. Okay? All right, so those are the first few questions. Let me scroll this up a little bit and keep right on going. Determine the axis of the symmetry for the function y equals x squared plus 6x minus 5. And my advice to you is to graph this guy. Take your graphing calculator, graph this, and you will see when you're done graphing it that, let me see here, it works out to be x is negative 3, so if it's negative 3, that's 9 minus 18, so it's negative 23. So I guess the axis looks something like this over here, 1, 2, 3. And when you draw it, let me put 1 there. When you draw it, it's going to go right through where x is equal to negative 3. Remember, any vertical line is always x equals. As soon as they ask you for axis of symmetry, you should write x equals. That should be automatically written down. Then you just see where does x go through. In this case, it's going through negative 3. So x is negative 3. Next question. Petri dish contains a population of bacteria. This population doubles every hour. Which graph below can represent this growth? I don't remember in any particular order, but I remember one was linear. Linear is not doubling every hour, because if I start with one piece of bacteria and then it doubles, it goes to 2, then it goes to 4, then it goes to 8, then it goes to 16, 32, 64. Linear means it has a constant slope. And in this case, the change in y over the change in x is changing constantly. I know the answer was point B. This line here is asymptotic. It should not touch. It should get as close as it can, but not touch. You're looking for something in this shape. This describes exponential. Look at the numbers here. 64, next 128, 256. Look at how big those numbers are getting. And that's what this graph shows as it accelerates toward a really, really high numbers. I think C was a parabola of some sort, and D, I think, was like a trig function or something. Okay. Next up, a question about domain. Talks here about officials in a town use a function C to analyze traffic patterns. C of n represents the rate of traffic through an intersection where n is the number of observed vehicles in a specific time interval, which would be the most appropriate domain. Now, here's the thing. Can you possibly get a half a vehicle through an intersection? No, so that can't be it. Can you get negative vehicles through there? Not in any universe I live in. Can't get negative ones here, but I could get no vehicles, 1 vehicle, 2 vehicle, 3 vehicle, etc. So choice 4 is the correct answer. On to number 9. Picture below shows the input and output for a function. Write the function rule. Now, this one is linear because look, I'm constantly going up by 24 on the output side, and on the input side, I'm constantly going up by 1. So the slope, or the rate of change, is change in y over change in x. So it's going to be 24 over 1, or just 24. Now, remember, slope, function rules, in this case because it's linear, is the equation of a line, y equals mx plus b. Since it's y equals mx plus b, I need to know the slope, which I just figured out is 24. So I get y equals 24x. But I also need to know b, which we know as the y-intercept. If that's the y-intercept is always at 0, where it meets 0. So you look for what pairs up with 0, plus 48. We did well with that. A couple of kids, 1 or 2 kids switched the 48 and the 24. But by and large, we did very well with that question. Okay, so next up, table below represents a function f. What is a good rule for this function? And the best way to do this question is to try all the choices and see which rule explains all, and all is the key to that, data in the table. Let's try 3 to the x. If I look at this first choice right here, and I do 3 to the 3, do I get 9? No, so that's not it. Now this one might be, because 3 times 3 is 9. But let's try the next one. Is 3 times 4 17? No, it's not, so that's not it. Let's go to the next one. Let's try choice 3, 2 to the x plus 1. Well, 2 to the 3 plus 1, 2 cubed is 8, plus 1 is 9, so that works. Let's do 2 to the 4th. 2 to the 4th is 16, plus 1 is 17. Let's do 2 to the 6th. 2 to the 6th is 64, plus 1 is 65. This is looking pretty good. 2 to the 7th, you just do it on your calculator. 2 to the 7th is 128, plus 1 is 129. And 2 to the 8th is 256, plus 1 is 257. So there it is, choice 3. Okay? And I am going fairly fast because I need to get these things done through a period. So rather than have me belabor the point, I suggest if you're not 100% aware of what I'm doing, if I were you, I would just replay the video. Okay? Jamison family kept a log of the distance they traveled. Over which interval was the average speed greatest? So to do this, look, over any interval, the rate of speed is going to be, speed is the rate of change, which is going to be change in y over change in x. So the y's are here. So 110 minus 40 is 70, and 2 minus 1 is 1. Over here, I get 180 minus 110 is 70, but 4 minus 2 is 2. For this interval here, 230 minus 180 is 50, and 6 minus 4 is 2. Over here, 350 minus 230 is 120, and 8 minus 6 is 2. And over here, 390 minus that is 40, and then 10 minus 8 is 2. So if I break these all down, I get 70, 35, 25, 60, and 20. So the fastest one is actually the interval from 1 to 2 seconds, or the first to the second hour, I'm sorry, not seconds. And that's the correct choice. All right, so we have gone through all of the graphs now. We've gone through all the questions. I hope that this satisfies what it is you need to know. And off for me to record the second video. So I will pause now and do exactly that.